Along the world's longest undefended border, a subtle but significant transformation is taking place, one that's easy to miss if you're not looking closely. For generations, this border has symbolized friendship and cooperation, but now, it's also becoming a gateway for a new kind of migration. A quiet shift is underway, as the flow of goods, people and ideas begins to tilt northward. The highways and checkpoints that once bustled with tourists and day trippers are now seeing a different kind of traffic, one driven by economic necessity and strategic planning. Major American companies are moving parts of their operations to Canada, not for the weather, but to escape a challenging U.S. economic environment. These are not just small startups but household names, shifting their resources, talent, and investments across the border in search of a more favorable climate for business. This isn't about chasing cheap labor, it's about finding stability and predictability. In a world where uncertainty can derail even the best-laid plans, companies are seeking environments where they can plan for the future with confidence. For decades, offshoring meant moving to low-wage countries, chasing the lowest possible costs, often at the expense of quality or oversight. The global economy was defined by this relentless search for cheaper production. Now, the move is to another developed nation, Canada. Here, companies find a skilled workforce, modern infrastructure, and a regulatory environment that feels more predictable and less volatile than what they're experiencing at home. The catalyst? Economic policies and trade barriers that have made the U.S. less attractive for manufacturing. Tariffs, shifting regulations, and political uncertainty have all played a role in pushing businesses to look northward for solutions. Companies are seeking the path of least resistance, and right now that path runs through Canadian cities like Toronto and Vancouver. These urban centers are quickly becoming hubs for industries that once called the American Midwest or South their home. These boardroom decisions are reshaping communities and economies on both sides of the border. Small towns in Canada are seeing new opportunities, while some American communities face tough questions about their future. We'll explore the policies driving this shift, from tax incentives to trade agreements, and examine how government decisions are influencing the flow of capital and jobs. Hear from businesses on the front lines, those making the tough calls, adapting to new realities, and navigating the complexities of cross-border operations. And see how these choices ripple out to affect everyday people, families, workers, and entire communities whose lives are being changed by decisions made in distant boardrooms. This is more than a business story. It's about jobs, livelihoods, and the evolving relationship between two close allies. It's about how economic forces can redraw the map of opportunity and what that means for the future of both nations. Let's dive into the forces behind this unexpected migration and discover what it reveals about the changing face of North American industry. To understand this northward shift, look back to the Trump-era tariffs. The goal was to protect U.S. industries by making foreign goods more expensive, hoping to boost American manufacturing. But tariffs also raised costs for U.S. companies relying on imported materials, squeezing profits and competitiveness. Instead of absorbing these costs, many businesses sought workarounds. By moving production to Canada, they could avoid tariffs on raw materials and re-export finished goods to the U.S. under more favorable terms. The very policies meant to protect American jobs ended up incentivizing companies to leave. It's a classic case of unintended consequences in global trade. Why Canada? For many U.S. companies, the answer goes far beyond the obvious. It's not just about escaping tariffs or finding a new market, it's about making a strategic leap, one that's rooted in logic, opportunity, and a vision for long-term growth. For U.S. companies, it's about more than just tariffs. It's about future-proofing their operations, diversifying risk, and ensuring they can continue to serve their customers without disruption. The decision to expand north is often made in boardrooms where leaders weigh not just costs, but the stability and predictability of their business environment. Canada offers tariff-free access to the U.S. market under the USMCA, making it a smart move for manufacturers. This agreement means goods can flow freely, supply chains remain intact, and companies can avoid the uncertainty of sudden policy changes or trade disputes. The business environment is familiar: shared language, similar laws, and a skilled workforce. Canadian cities are home to top talent, and the culture of innovation mirrors that of the U.S., making integration seamless for American firms. Proximity means companies can keep U.S. headquarters while running Canadian production just hours away. This closeness allows for easy travel, real-time collaboration, and the ability to manage operations on both sides of the border without missing a beat. Canadian governments offer stability and incentives contrasting with recent U.S. trade volatility. Federal and provincial programs support new investments, and the political climate is geared toward attracting and retaining international business. For many, the risk of staying in the U.S. now outweighs the cost of moving north. Companies are weighing the potential for disruption against the benefits of a stable, welcoming environment, and the scales are tipping toward Canada. Canada is seen as a stable, predictable platform to serve the U.S. market. It's a place where companies can invest with confidence, knowing the rules won't change overnight. This isn't a rejection of America, but a pragmatic response to uncertainty. It's about adapting to a changing world, where flexibility and resilience are more important than ever. The shift is already visible on factory floors across Canada. New investments, expanded production lines, and a growing workforce are all signs of this strategic migration. It's a real-time strategy, not just a theory. Companies are acting now, making decisions that will shape their future for years to come. The logic is simple: stability, access, and risk management. For U.S. companies looking to thrive in an unpredictable world, Canada isn't just an option. It's a logical leap forward. Launchpad Copac in Ontario is at the heart of this trend, standing as a symbol of how global trade dynamics are reshaping local businesses. Nestled in the industrial heartland of Canada, this facility has become a focal point for companies looking to adapt to a rapidly changing economic landscape. Once a modest bottling company serving mostly local clients, Launchpad is now overwhelmed with demand from U.S. firms eager to avoid tariffs and trade barriers. The plant's assembly lines, once quiet, now hum with activity around the clock, as orders pour in from across the border. CEO Scott Morrison says American companies are signing long-term contracts, viewing Canadian production as a permanent shift rather than a temporary workaround. He notes that these partnerships are built on trust and a shared vision for stability in an uncertain market. To keep up, Launchpad is running at full capacity, hiring more workers, and expanding operations. The company is investing in new equipment, training programs, and even opening additional shifts to meet the surging demand. The move isn't just a quick fix. Companies see Canada as a hedge against future U.S. policy swings. By diversifying their supply chains, they're protecting themselves from sudden changes in tariffs, regulations, or political tensions. Other major firms are considering similar moves, integrating Canadian facilities into their supply chains and forging new cross-border partnerships. This trend is creating a ripple effect throughout the region, as more businesses look north for stability and opportunity. This isn't isolated, it's a widespread realignment. Factories across Canada are ramping up production, and new trade routes are being established to handle the increased flow of goods. The result, Canadian businesses are booming, but the shift is also reshaping the entire North American industrial landscape. New jobs are being created and communities are experiencing a wave of economic growth. The story of Launchpad is a window into a much larger economic transformation, one that's redefining how and where products are made on the continent. The migration north is real, and it's accelerating. As more companies make the move, Canada's role in North American manufacturing is only set to grow, marking a new era for cross-border commerce. The influx of U.S. business is a double-edged sword for Canada. In the short term, it means jobs and investment, especially in manufacturing hubs like Ontario. But this boom is built on fragile ground. Canada's economy is deeply tied to U.S. trade. If the trade conflict escalates, the gains could vanish. Ontario alone could lose up to 190,000 jobs. The Bank of Canada warns that a full-blown trade war could permanently damage the nation's economic potential. The current surge is a symptom of instability, not a guarantee of lasting prosperity. Canada faces a tough balancing act benefit now, but brace for possible fallout. Key uncertainty cuts both ways. Many Canadian companies are eyeing a move south. For firms reliant on the U.S. market, setting up shop in America is a defensive move against future tariffs. A recent survey found nearly 20% of Canadian companies are considering U.S. expansion, with 37% in manufacturing and auto sectors. The fear being cut off from their biggest market overnight. This anxiety is stalling investment. Almost 40% of businesses are delaying major decisions. CEO confidence has collapsed, with only 3% expecting growth. Companies are being forced to pick a side of the border, fragmenting supply chains and raising costs. The result is inefficiency and uncertainty for everyone. The great sorting of North American industry is underway. It's a costly, disruptive response to unpredictable trade policy. The data tells the story. Uncertainty is stifling growth on both sides of the border. Nearly 1 in 5 Canadian firms are considering moving to the US. 37% in key sectors are weighing the same. These aren't easy moves. Plants, equipment, and jobs are deeply rooted. Yet the risk of staying put feels greater than the upheaval of moving. Investment is stalling, with 39% of businesses delaying growth plans. Economists warn that this hesitation will have long-term consequences, lowering productivity and competitiveness. CEO optimism has plummeted, reflecting deep anxiety about the future. Confidence is the engine of growth. Without it, economies stall. The numbers reveal a continent holding its breath, waiting for clarity. Relocating across the border is a last resort, complex, expensive, and risky. Legal fees, breaking leases, severance, and tax implications add up fast. Setting up new facilities and hiring staff is a massive undertaking, especially in a tight labor market. Adapting to new regulations and local laws adds more hurdles. The biggest risk? Tariffs could be reversed, leaving companies stranded after costly moves. Most businesses prefer short-term fixes, changing suppliers, renegotiating contracts, over permanent relocation. The gamble is huge and the stakes are high. For many, the best option is to wait and adapt, not leap. This corporate shuffle isn't just a boardroom issue, it hits Main Street. When a US factory moves to Canada, American towns lose jobs and tax revenue, hurting schools and services. Canadian towns may gain, but their fortunes are tied to unpredictable US policy. For workers and families, today's boom could be tomorrow's bust. Consumers pay the price too. Supply chain reshuffling adds costs, raising prices on everyday goods. It's a hidden tax driven by political strategy, not economic efficiency. The story is a lesson in global interconnectedness. Trade policies ripple across borders, affecting everyone. For ordinary people, it's about job security, the cost of living, and community stability. Trade policy isn't abstract, it shapes daily life for millions. In a globalized world, no economy stands alone.